Y'all, Wizard101 just announced something big and it changes absolutely everything. What are you talking about, Sauce? What are you talking about? I'm talking about nothing other than the tweet that they put out yesterday and why I think this is a gigantic shift for Wizard101. This is a tweet, and basically, it's them announcing a contest regarding the first completion of the upcoming Wallaroo dungeon. Now, if y'all don't know, even though the most recent update made level 170 the max level, it did not release the final dungeon of Wallaroo. It wasn't complete yet, so they're releasing it now. But the way they're doing it and the event they're making out of it is something we need to talk about. For one, the contest. If you are interested in this, if you are part of the world's first team to complete this, you will basically be given a full set of Dream Reaver gear. Part of the prize is also tons and tons of crowns. They're actually giving you crowns if you're part of the world's first team to beat this new ass dungeon that they're releasing to end off Wallaroo. Now, the Dream Reaver set is the Wallaroo, offensive set. It's probably synonymous to the Aeon gear that we got in the previous world of Novus. This is gear that you would probably end up spending a lot of time farming if you were to do the dungeon. They basically, by being the first one to figure it out, you're getting a massive reward. And the way that it works is, basically, if you happen to be able to finish this dungeon, you basically post the victory screen from it, or you just post a badge that you get from it on social media, tag Wizard101 so they see it. And the first person to do that will be basically given, I guess, a code for the Dream Reaver set. As far as the release date of this dungeon, they've already transparently said that it's going to be early next week. I'm just going to assume that it's going to be Monday or Tuesday off of that alone. There's obviously some flaws, I think, with the contest, especially because it's the first one. I don't really think it should be about the first one to post it on Twitter or social media or wherever. I think it should be whoever is, the first one to receive the badge in game, which if Wizard101 has the tools to measure that, I feel like that's how they should reward you the full set. I almost feel like it should be automatic through the game and then they announce it like on their social media. And yeah, the rewards, I mean, yes, you do end up saving time, but you'll probably end up saving a lot more time by just waiting until there's a good strategy to farm it anyway. But I'm gonna be honest, I can look past that because this is something unique that gets a community doing stuff that's very exciting. All I'm gonna say, y'all, this is massive. I mean, a new dungeon coming into the game, period, could be gigantic because we haven't had a gigantic dungeon that's brought a bunch of people together at the end of, like the known strength, like at max level. We haven't gotten that since like Darkmoor and Tartarus. It's been so many years and 70 levels since. The fact that they're making an event out of it, a contest out of it, this is really gonna be like who can figure out something that's very, very challenging. Now, all of this is really, really good, but why am I making a whole video out of it? I think what sets us apart is the fact that they're releasing this dungeon in challenge mode before they even release a standard mode dungeon. Now, if you do PvE primarily in Wizard101, you might not even know what standard mode and challenge mode are. You might have heard about them, but you probably don't know how crazy this could be for the game. And I would argue that this release is the first time that a challenge mode version of anything is actually being made to be something of relevance. Now, what do I mean by this is going to be a relevant challenge mode? Let's look at a past example. Let's look at the Hall of Heroes, right? You can switch between standard and challenge mode. And basically when you choose challenge mode, there's all kinds of, additional things that happen so that, makes it harder. But there's never a real reason to do this because by the time they release a challenge mode for this, people had already been done farming this. Even the challenge modes that they've released recently, it's still easier to farm the boss with like a 1-turn or 2-turn strat than doing the challenge mode for actual loot. So in a bunch of ways, challenge mode is not something that I would have even bothered to interact with as a PvE player. But now for the first time ever, challenge mode's getting released first, and it looks like that's gonna mean something. Keep in mind that spells that are banned in PvP are also banned in challenge mode. These all follow the same rule set. That means no mass feints, no incendiates. You can't even use like burst heals of spells, I want to say. Don't quote me if I'm wrong like that ass, but like I'm pretty sure because this is banned in PvP, you could only use the version of Pigsy that does an overtime heal component instead of the burst heal. That type of stuff changes up a lot when it comes to how you do team-oriented activity outside of a raid setting. What I really hope is that by choosing to do the challenge mode of this and even maybe becoming good at it, the drop rates are a little bit more generous. I feel like everybody wants this, and yet I've yet to see a challenge mode that once you get good at it is faster than the standard mode and drops better loot. I haven't seen that combination yet, and that's kind of why I haven't really been interacting with the system up to now. I really think challenge mode is one of the biggest missed opportunities, and it's just nice to see that Wiz is kind of taking it seriously. You have a game where the majority of people are PvE based, where you have raids that have divided a bunch of people, and you have the super casual stuff that has bored a bunch of people. And when they announced challenge mode, a bunch of people were super excited because they thought they would get a whole entire version of Wizard101 that was just a little bit harder. But update after update after update, it seems to be getting scaled back, right? You only are getting challenge modes in old instances that you wouldn't revisit. Getting challenge mode, but they're not really, you're not incentivized as a player to do them. I don't want to, obviously speak for everyone, but from my view, I feel like challenge mode was getting way less attention than both PvP and raids, even though challenge mode has the ability for the most players to get involved because it requires the smallest barrier of entry and it doesn't require 12 as people. I think if this rollout is successful, you'll see more reasons to do challenge mode, interact with it. You'll have ways for people to use, maybe like their stats for advanced content outside of just PvP and raid. And what I'm most excited for, I'm really, really excited for what it's going to look like when standard mode comes out and you can use team up and socialize with people while farming a dungeon. I feel like both of these things have been pretty lost. I feel like you don't really get the chance to maybe just get to know a stranger because you don't get to be strangers when you do a raid. That's not how that works. But if they get the difficulty just right and make the drop rates, good enough in challenge mode, I feel like you could really find a way for you to self-select how casual or hard you might want it. And maybe you could have a dungeon that fits a bunch of sizes. I feel like, again, that's not something we've had recently. I think one of the more fundamental problems facing Wiz is that they do need to cater to the casual player. I think this is something that if you're in the top 1% of PvP players maybe, or even just, I don't know, someone who just really has played the game to its max, I think a lot of people really crave a challenge. For a lot of people, raids have become a pretty casual ass activity. They can actually do it pretty easily. When you have people like that, and yet literally 99% of people just want a super, super casual PvE experience, it's really nice to see that maybe there could be a middle ground that really helps people go from casual to not, and also it lets them choose a challenge that's not as bad as raids if that's just too much for someone. That's what me personally as a player I'd want challenge mode to be. I just want it to be just a slightly more casual way to do stuff like raids without raiding, you don't need 12 people, maybe you just need 4. You don't need to make the exact same precise set of moves. Maybe there's a little bit of room for freedom, but you still have to make good moves. And yeah, maybe you have to communicate, but you don't have to be in a goddamn Discord call, making custom call outs for the run to go smoothly. Maybe those specifications and qualifications are really, really hard to for them to hit, but the fact that they've hit it before makes me really optimistic that we might see that soon. As always, let me know what you guys think of the contest, of the fact that they're releasing the challenge mode first, and what you want the challenge mode version of the dungeon to be compared to the standard mode. I can't wait for this dungeon to drop. Turn on noties so you don't miss the content the second I can do it. I look forward to reading all of y'all's comments. As always, if somebody hasn't told you awesome today, they doing something. I'll see y'all soon. Stay awesome, and yeah.